Hello and welcome to the latest update from Dean Park Station. In this update I'll be looking at some progress on my depot office, which is nearing completion on the exterior. I'll also be going through some scale model scenery kits that I've been working on downstairs whilst it's been a bit warm up here in the loft. I'll also be going through a step-by-step of one of those kits actually to show you how simple it is to put together. I'll touch on some alterations at the depot here as well regarding track work, and I'll also be going through very briefly my latest addition to the layout, which is this departmental BR Blue Class 40, which is sitting poking its nose out the shed here. So I hope you enjoy. Any questions, please do get in touch. What I'm doing now is I'm working on constructing the roof and adding detail to the top of the office roof. Now, what I've done is I've taken the roof out of the building. As you can see, the white bit here, that's the underside, hence the interior ceiling. And I've got this rim going all the way around. Now what I've done is I've positioned it so that it overhangs the same at each side. Okay, it's round about 8mm overhang right the way around. So then what I did is I took one of my draftsman pencils, this is going back to my uni days, and it's only a 0.7mm lead, and I've very carefully gone all the way around the side or the edge of the white piece. I've then taken it off and I've blue tacked it back in position, so when I turn it over it's in the correct position. Why have I done that, you might ask? Well, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the pencil and line it in on the inner sides, and that will allow me to know where to put the next stage, which I'll show you in a second. Okay, so if I was to go all the way around there, avoiding the blue tack. Okay, go all the way around. Now, when I lift that off, I'll be left with an outline. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to remove this rim and I'm going to apply sand to that. Now I'm talking the sand that you get in children's play pits and sand pits. So I've went and bought myself a bag of that. It's very fine. And then what I did is I spray mounted it to the surface as a test piece here. I spray mounted it to the surface and then went over it with just primer just now, and it sticks. It really does. The 3M spray mount really does grab the sand. Obviously when I'm having the sand in here, because it's a kind of felted roof as you would have found in the 70s and 80s, the cheap alternative that eventually cracked and leaked and caused damp problems inside the building. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the effect of the gravel they used to put on top, the very fine chippings, and that's the finest sand I could find, and it's even finer than chinchilla dust. So that gives a kind of good scale 00, gravel. That'll then go on the roof and then it'll all be painted. Obviously I'm not wanting to get any gravel on the rim here, so I'm not going to bother with spray mounting that with the gravel. That's more of the clean felted edge. So I'm going to do that now and I'll show you the next stage. the lip where the rim will go masked off. The reason I've done that obviously is not to get the spray mount on it, and obviously the gravel. When I place this over the top and line it up with the lines on the pencil lines, I shouldn't see masking tape, okay, because that means I'll be taking the gravel straight to the edges. So what I've really tried to do there is actually still expose the pencil line, because there will be a slight difference obviously with the pencil getting into the corners. So I've tried to get when I do gravel it, the gravel will go right to the very edges, as you won't see a clean edge. That's just me, I'm maybe being a bit over pernickety, but I like to do things correctly. I've just now got the yellow masking tape, and I've actually taped it to this bit of paper, so when I do spray the glue on, it doesn't go over the sides of the roof or indeed the white painted surface underneath. So now it's to the shed we go with the spray mount and the sand. Okay, what I've done is I've sprayed the top of the MDF in this 3M display mount, and then what I've basically done is I've taken a sieve, don't tell the wife, and a glass of this fine sand. This is the sand pit sand, okay, and I've scattered it over, give it a liberal coating of this. Okay, I've given it 2 or 3 minutes, and I've just then tilted the roof to get rid of the excess, and there's a nice thin covering of the sand on top of that. And really now what I've got to do is let it dry thoroughly before then removing the masking tape and test fitting the rim around the edges. If you've got any bald patches, any missed parts, you could just spray mount that part again and, you know, give it another thin application of the sand. This is the sanded roof section, and what I've just done is I've primed it with some Humbrol grey primer from an aerosol. When you prime something, it shows up any areas that might not be as you wanted. There was a couple of areas I thought, look a bit flat, I could do a bit more texture with the gravel there or the sand. So what I did, whilst it was still wet, is took a pinch of the sand and I just sprinkled it on those areas, and it adhered to the surface on top of the wet primer. After that primer had dried, I then went over the newly laid sand with another light coat of primer to kind of blend it all in. You're not wanting perfection here. Gravelled roofs on top of flat structures, you know, the gravel's never going to be perfect because it was basically put on the roof and then raked out by hand. So you're wanting areas that are slightly heavier with the gravel than others. What I'll be doing with this one is I'll be painting it in a Tamiya acrylic XF24 dark grey, but I'll not be flooding it with the colour. What I'll be doing with the airbrush is I'll be, yes, giving it a good coat of the dark grey, but allowing some areas to be slightly lighter. And I'm not meaning patchy, it's not going to be a camouflage roof, but if you just go over the surface, under the little recesses of the sand where the lighter parts might be, I'm going to try and get an appearance of obviously chips that are of slightly different size and tone, just like the real thing. Then what will happen is the rim of the roof will sit nicely on the area there, the areas that have not been covered in sand, and that'll be treated with the dark grey as well, but a solid coat of that dark grey. The gravel roof is now complete. It's been painted with the dark grey. As you can see, it's kind of highlighted parts of the gravel. I've not gone over it as a heavy full coat as I indicated earlier, so you'll still see some of the light grey primer underneath. So I think I've given it a realistic gravelly chip appearance. If I then add the finished edge on, that gives the completed roof, which will then sit on top of the fascia and soffits that I just showed you in the previous clip. So it's a case of now gluing this onto that and fitting the roof in place. Then in the next stages I'll show you vents going on. With work continuing on the roof, I've added this plastic strip around the edge of the brickwork at the top. This is to kind of replicate soffits and fascia for the actual roof structure. It just gives the roof a better depth when the actual whole thing is constructed. I've made it from styrene strip code 134, and it's basically 10 strips in the pack of 0.75mm by 2mm. Okay, you get a very thin strip. And this one's just been primed, and I then obviously painted it and glued it. The paint I've used is a Tamiya flat dark grey, and its code is XF24, and that is the tone that I have used for the roof as well. Looking closer in, you can see the steps at the main entrance along with the downpipes. The steps are made by me and cut into the building, as you can see, and these have been painted in precision paints, weathered concrete. They will be given a bit of a weathering and a variation before being placed on the layout. The downpipes are from a ratio kit. Now, the kit doesn't give you very long downpipes, kind of for a single story building, so I had to kind of cut and shunt two of them together, do a bit of alterations to them, and also the brackets for holding the downpipe to the building in the pack anyway are more of a kind of cast iron, old-fashioned style, where the downpipes have been cast iron themselves. Because I'm replicating a building in the late 70s, 80s, I'm looking for the plastic downpipes, and these had smaller brackets to hold them in position, and I've just fashioned these. You can probably see them actually, there's 3 on the downpipe. I've fashioned these from tiny bits of plasticard strip from Evergreen, and these have been simply glued on the back before priming and painting. I did have a bit of a problem. These are the second batch of downpipes that I made. The first batch, again from Ratio, I primed in the Humbrol spray primer, but they tended to give a very rough finish and almost like a cracked effect, and this didn't go away when I painted the Tamiya acrylic on top. So what I did is I went back and made another set, and I painted them in the Tamiya plastic primer, and then with the Tamiya acrylics it gave a perfect finish. So, you know, unexpected result there. I used Humbrol spray primer for 99% of my stuff, but obviously the Ratio plastic didn't like it, so I had to go and use Tamiya. These have just been glued onto the building using a very, very small amount of rocket. As you can see, I've now got the roof in position. It was lowered in, and it can be easily removed by pushing from inside up where there's a gap in the stairwell area and the toilet area. You've got 4 vents on the roof, and the 2 at the right hand side there, one's positioned above the toilet areas, and the one at the very far corner is above the stairwell area. These are 3D printed from York Model Making. I had these done for me, and they've been finished in a neutral grey from Tamiya. Final piece of detail which I indicated earlier was the kind of soffits, the edges going round, just set in from the roof itself. That's a matching dark grey from Tamiya, and while I lift the roof off, that stays in position. And you'll notice at the very top of the downpipe I've had to kind of cut that in to fit round the soffit so it doesn't stick out. So that took a wee bit of alteration and planning to get just right. Looking at the back of the building, you'll see the steps are in position, and I've also got steps at the fire exit there. They've been actually cut in just like the normal steps. When I take it away, I had to alter the length of the door facings not to hinder the steps, and that has been made up of 4 separate parts, believe it or not, including the glazing. So even the smallest of details take a bit of work. The roof vents, you'll probably see, don't sit totally flush with the gravelled roof. They have got a 1mm square piece of plastic card underneath just to give them that lift, obviously for ventilation, just like the real thing. And you can see at the very right hand corner there, there's another downpipe. That's the exterior of the building now complete. All I have to do now is fit the furniture to the interior, and that should be forthcoming within the next few weeks. In order to accommodate the 2-lane 600mm long engine shed into this part of the depot, I had to remove the modern Bachmann Scencraft traction shed. In that shed there was a single inspection pit. Now I was faced with the dilemma whether I wanted to continue that inspection pit the full length of the new shed or just remove the inspection pit altogether. I have got inspection pits at other sheds on the depot. I'll have to alter the spacing of the track work between the 2 lanes very slightly. However, I can't put an inspection pit on the left hand running lane, which is the one furthest to the back there, because that is directly above the main running line underneath the depot. So as I said, I've removed the inspection pit. That'll be filled in, plugged, and a new bit of track put across, and you'll never know it was there. When it's too hot in the loft, it's great to be able to work on some kits downstairs in the coolness of the house. I've been working on some of my pile of scale model scenery kits that I've kind of accumulated over the months. Just a selection of what I've been doing is in front of you here. Start at the back, we've got the gas bottle cages, which I'll be doing a step-by-step how-to on in the next clips. We've got a 3D printed tool chest there, and they come self-coloured in red or blue, and you can either plonk them straight on the layout. They've got a kind of little black plastic top that you can fit on like a rubber surface. Again, it comes black. You can just glue it straight to the unpainted 3D printed product, or you can paint them yourself. I've used a Tamiya flat red after priming it to give it more of a matte finish and more of a red that is fitting with my depot. There's one kind of closer up. There you can see the kind of red straight from the packet. It's an orangey kind of red, and there's the red that I've used. I've just taken a cocktail stick with some silver paint on it and touched it on the handle or the lever of the cupboard door there, and it just picks it out nicely. These will get a slight weathering as well. Next we've got the extractor fans there, 3 sizes, and they're quite a nifty little kit actually. They come with 2 layers. One layer's got the fan, another layer's just the grill, and you glue them together after painting, and you can see there against the white paper background that you can pick out the fan. I've picked out the fan in red, and I've given it a little weathering on the blades, just with some weathering powders to kind of show that it's, you know, picking up dirty air as it's rotating. And the smallest one there is a silver blade, or an aluminium painted blade. Next kit, we've got the workbenches here. I've got 4 here. You get 4 in a pack, but what I've done here is I've made 4 versions to show you the versatility of the workbench kit. First off, we've got the metal workbench here, and if I lift that up, it's even got a small engineer's vice. I've painted blue, as they generally are, or black, and the silver separately fitted vice jaws there with the, I just think it was a grey primer for the handle there, the vice handle, and a tank grey coloured surface there to give it the grey metalworker's bench. Okay, the opposite one there is just without the vice, if you just want a workbench, maybe for a welder to put his equipment on, that kind of thing. It gives the impression of a kind of metal surface, a painted metal or a darkened metal surface for the table. The one at the front there is a woodworking bench. Again, it's got a vice, a woodworking vice this time, and it's got the well in the bench where you would store your tools whilst working. So that is a really impressive and easy to make version of the kit. And at the back there, I've just gone for the plain surface to make it. Could be a desk for an office, it could be, you know, a desk for a depot, or, you know, even a kitchen table, you know, in the middle of somebody's little kitchen, or a preparation table in a kitchen. So that shows you the versatility of that particular kit. It's a brilliant little kit. The kit to the left is the shelving, ideal for offices, storage rooms, libraries, depots, factories, warehouses, you name it. It's a really good kit. It takes a bit of time to put together and get it all neatened up. I've just left this with grey primer on it actually, and it's even got the bracings at the back. You can really pick these out into whatever colour you fancy. More modern ones would be more high vis, such as maybe a red, where back in the day, you know, maybe dark greys, dark browns, or a kind of mid grey like this. You get 6 in a pack. I'm just showing you 3 of the variations there. Final little thing I've got on display here is not a kit in itself, but these kind of tool racks come to be cut out and, you know, pasted onto a wall, for example, and they come in the tool chest pack along with other health and safety notices and stuff like that. Instead of just sticking it against the wall, making it quite two-dimensional, because it's a tool rack after all, it's going to have a lot of tools hung on it, it's going to have a bit of depth to it. I've just mocked up a small plastic frame using evergreen strips with a piece of, I think it was 0.5mm plastic card at the back there, glued it all together with Plastic Magic, painted it, I think this colour was neutral grey from Tamiya, and then just cut out the tool rack, spray mounted it and positioned it in inside the frame there. It's quite good, it gives it more 3D effect, a bit more depth to it, and that'll go in my depot shed, and I've made a couple of those. So there we have it, a small selection of the scale model sceneries kits that I've been working on. To see more of these kits, the link is in the description below. Okay, the kit I'm going to be making is gas bottle cages LX261-00, and it's a pack of 2. You get a large and a small cage. First thing I'm doing here is I'm removing the backing parts, or the mesh parts, from the laser board. I then take some adhesive and form a thin bead around the side of the front part, which is still attached to the laser board. You only need a thin bead of this glue, it's very, very strong. Then carefully take the mesh part, line it up with the front part and press into position, ensuring it is straight and square with the edges. Check both sides. What I'm doing now is I'm looking at stage 2 of the instructions, and I released the panels from the laser board using a sharp craft knife. What I'm doing now is I'm putting an edge of glue along the front piece. I use a cocktail stick just to take any excess off. You don't want it pulling out over the mesh, that will block the mesh pattern. Then I take one of the sides, making sure that the inside matches the inside of the front panel, and I line it up and press it into position. With this adhesive you've got a bit of working time as well to adjust and tweak. Get it 90-degree angle, judging it by eye. You could use a square or a square corner of card to check this, but judging it by eye is fine. I then do the same to the other side using the same glue. Notice I've got a very fine syringe, and I kind of squeeze it and rub the excess off on the paper. This is just stop it pulling as it hits the laser board, so I always make sure the excess is off the end of the nozzle before applying to the laser board. Again, the second side is put in position, correctly positioned in the 90-degree angle. Adjusted, and then really what you want to do is, once you're happy with the position, leave it to dry. I'm now on stage 3 of the instructions. I'm now going to add the top panel to the cage, again taking the glue and wiping off any excess from the syringe, and then gently applying a thin dot dot pattern along the top. I'm now going to use a cocktail stick to hold the model in place so I can then apply glue on the other side. Remember, you can use the cocktail stick to wipe up any excess or spread any glue out. Carefully position the top, ensuring that it is flush with the front and two sides of the cage. You will have an overhang at the back. This is as it should be, to allow the back of the cage to sit in the correct position. I'm not going to apply the back at this stage. Instead, I'm going to prime and then paint the cage. Allows you to get the primer and paint into the inside of the cage more effectively. However, before I do this, I'm just test fitting without adhesive the back of the cage to ensure all is well. Any adjustments here can be made with a small filing board. I've now made the small cage as well, and again left the back off. Stage 4 is to add on the hinges and the handles. These are particularly small, so you've got to be careful. Use a sharp blade to remove them from the laser board sheet. You get 3 handles, which I'm cutting out now, and 8 hinges. Cut them from the sheet and carefully poke them through. If you make a mess of any of them, simply use a rule and a sharp edge, a sharp knife, to remove some of the spare laser board and make your own. These get glued in position along with the hinges in the correct place. For this one, I've just put a dab of glue on the paper and using a cocktail stick to apply glue to the area required. And then I've got a very small pair of pincers to lift up the handle and put in position. Press into place and allow to dry. There we go. Ready to be primed. So just to recap, we've got 3 handles and 2 hinges on the small cabinet and 4 hinges on the large cabinet. The doors can be positioned in the closed or open setting, so you can actually have the cage in use. The final stage is to apply the glue to the back edge and fit the rear of the cages. I'm using Rocket Rapid for this because I know that it takes 2 painted surfaces and fixes them together. Apply with a cocktail stick, again a thin bead or a dot 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 pattern. We do not need a lot of this glue. I'm using a second cocktail stick here just to hold it in position, keep my hands out of the way while I spread the glue out along both sides. Also apply a very small drop to the top edge. Position the back of the cage, aligning it with the top edge and both sides. Allowed to just want to give you a very brief look at the latest edition, which is this Class 40 in Departmental BR Blue. It comes factory weathered, and this particular one has been numbered 97407. And this is because it was assigned to departmental use, so they gave it the unique running numbers. First off, it's the disc head code variant, where it's got either a white open disc to let the white light out, or if they want to close that to hide the light, they fold it down from the top, and you can see there the one in the middle lower, upper middle and right hand side lower are in the closed position. So when this locomotive is going in the forward position, the only light that comes through is where the white disc is open. And depending on what, shall we say, layout of the discs there are, what configuration, will let the line side signal workers, etc., know what type of train is being pulled. The factored weathered finish on this has been carried out brilliantly well. It's got a heavy grime on the roof, brown streaking down the side, filthy under frame and bogies, dirty buffer beam area. Both ends of the locomotive are dirty, but they're different. The number 2 end is even dirtier than the number 1 end, which is on show here. Bachmann really have done a great job with this, and it kind of follows the recent trend and improvements in factory weathered finishes. I know we've got Sir Gwynedd on the layout, which is my latest one, and then we've got the 47706 in NSE former ScotRail livery. That's really grimy, and this one came out around about 2 to 3 years ago, and it really is a vast improvement on the earlier ones. So these 3 locos that I've just talked about, you know, they really are up there with you know, professional, as some people call it, professional weathering. Yes, it can be enhanced by further weathering and, you know, prototypical specific details if you really want to go down that route, but as an out-the-box weathered loco, it's great. It runs. So if you're looking for a real purposeful, heavy, first-generation diesel, I would fully recommend a Bachmann 40. This is the 3rd one I've got on my layout now. I had the centre head code Domino to start with. I then picked up a split head code, which looks stunning, and I've now got this, which is the indicator discs. So I've kind of got one from 3 of the, you know, the nose configurations, if you like, but this weather and finish really does impress me. Well, that's all I've got for this update. As summer draws to a close, I'll be getting back up here in the loft and really starting to work on the scenic details of the depot. Obviously, I've spent a lot of time on the buildings all in the back of the depot, and I've got a couple more to design and construct, and that'll be coming in future updates. If you'd like to see something from the Network South East region, you like to click on the link at the end of the screen for Everard Junction, and also the link to some of my videos as well. Cheers just now.